Clark has a new State Farm commercial, and we have major news coming out from the WNBA about this 2026 negotiations.
State Farm just unleashed a brand new commercial that features Caitlin Clark standing right alongside NBA legend Chris Paul. And just as you'd expect, it is absolutely breaking the internet. Now, the commercial itself is only about 30 seconds long, but the reactions, those are lasting a whole lot longer. But at the same exact time, some bombshell news is breaking about the WNBA's CBA negotiations. That basically proves the league has been playing some serious games with those salary numbers. We're getting into all of it. But before we break this all down, I gotta ask you this straight up. Why do you think certain people just can't stand to watch Caitlin Clark succeed, both on and off the court? Is it just plain jealousy? Is it something else entirely? Drop what you really think down in the comments. Alright, so let's get into what just happened, because Caitlin Clark is once again out here living completely rent-free in a whole lot of people's heads. I'm talking home, auto, you name it. State Farm agents are here for your questions. Chris, you retiring?
Want to help with this question?
Allow me to assist.
Dad, are you retiring? Oh, puppy. What's your name, little guy?
Tell me, you're retiring?
Oh,
it's mascot Jake.
So everyone says you're going to retire. Is it true? You can tell me.
Oh, is this metal?
Are you going to retire?
So, about 24 hours ago, State Farm drops their latest commercial featuring the one and only Chris Paul. Now, you gotta remember, Chris Paul has been doing State Farm commercials since 2008. That's almost 17 years of Jake from State Farm and his fictional twin brother, Cliff Paul. The man is basically synonymous with the entire brand at this point. But here's the thing, this commercial wasn't really about Chris Paul at all. It was about his retirement. The entire premise is that everyone is constantly asking Chris Paul if he's finally hanging it up. He's 40 years old. He just signed a one-year, $3.6 million deal with the Clippers over the summer. And yeah, people are dying to know if this is the end of the road. So, in the spot, Jake from State Farm is trying to field all these questions, and even Chris Paul's own kid asks if he's retiring. And then, who shows up out of nowhere? Caitlin Clark. She's looking directly at Chris Paul, practically interrogating him about whether he's actually done playing. She's asking him point blank, is it true? Are you retiring? You can tell me. The whole thing is actually really funny. Clark has this super playful energy where she's just pressing him for information like they're old buddies. And the internet went absolutely nuts. One person on X wrote, "Nobody understands how much I love Caitlin Clark. State Farm content, all in caps." That's the kind excitement we're talking about here. Another person posted, "New State Farm commercial with Caitlin Clark. Cameo. By the way, nobody cares if Chris Paul retires. Many thought he did already." Okay, that's a little harsh on CP3, but you get the point. The real star of this Chris Paul retirement commercial wasn't even Chris Paul. It was Caitlin Clark, popping up for about 10 seconds. And let's put this into context, because this is not Caitlin's first rodeo with State Farm. Not by a long shot. She actually signed with them back in October of 2023, which made her the first college athlete the company had ever signed to their entire sports roster. Just think about that for a second. State Farm had Patrick Mahomes. They had Chris Paul. They had these massive NFL and NBA stars. And they decided a college women's basketball player was worth adding to that elite list. Her first commercials dropped in November 2023. One featured her with reporter Jenny Taft in a coffee shop where someone says, "I need a break." And boom, suddenly Caitlin's in a Big Ten game break. In another one, a couple says, "Shoot," after backing into a pole. And Caitlin literally appears out of thin air ready to shoot a basketball, with Jimmy Butler and Reggie Miller in that one too. "I need a break. Time for a Big Ten game break. I'm Jenny Taft here with Hawkeye, Caitlin Clark. Excuse me, I just need a little help. Life's moving really fast. New job, new car, new apartment. Oh, you don't need us. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. State Farm is there for you and can help with your insurance needs." No. "Hey Jenny, I gotta get back to the game." Oh, let me just grab a latte to go. Make that 2. Then earlier this year, State Farm launched what might be their best Caitlyn commercial yet. The From the Logo campaign. The entire concept is built around her signature move of draining three-pointers from the logo at center court. In the ad, Caitlyn says, "You know, life would be easier if I could do everything from the logo." Then Jake from State Farm literally paints the State Farm logo all over her house so she can do things like open pickle jars and sort laundry just by standing on it. It's genuinely clever marketing. Caitlin Clark from the logo. You know,
life would be easier if I could do everything from the logo.
Allow me.
the assist should be, again, Dimash pairs OL bottom row from the losers. State Farm with the assist. This commercial was running constantly during the NBA playoffs and all throughout the WNBA season. And now, with this new Chris Paul retirement ad, State Farm is making it crystal clear that Caitlin Clark is an absolute cornerstone of their marketing strategy going forward. She's appearing right alongside a 21-year NBA veteran who's been with the company since 2008. That single fact tells you everything you need to know about how incredibly valuable she is to them. But this is where the story gets really interesting, because while Caitlin is out here collecting these massive endorsement deals and starring in commercials with NBA legends, there's a huge conversation brewing about whether WNBA players are actually getting paid what they truly deserve. And that brings us right to the CBA negotiation.
Has broken the internet. I'm kind of missed reporting on it yesterday, so we're going to do a little catch-up time here, man. So it stated the WNBA offered a $1.1 million max. Supermax is not what it seems, sources tell Front Office Sports. So from my understanding, I told them to immediately sign this. Now, that's before I read this article. Now, I read a little bit of it. I ain't going to lie to you guys. We're going to go over the majority of it right here in this video. But supposedly, there is like clause in this CBA negotiation. Basically, they have to meet certain criteria to make this $1.1 million.
If you haven't been
following this story, here's the quick version. The WNBA's collective bargaining agreement, or CBA, with the players' union is about to expire. The original deadline was October 31st, but they extended it to November 30th, which is just 8 days from now. And earlier this week, news broke that the WNBA had offered the players a new deal with a maximum salary of over $1.1 million. Suddenly, headlines were everywhere talking about how WNBA players could finally become millionaires and how this was a totally transformational moment for the league. And look, I'll be honest with you, when I first saw that number, I thought the same thing everyone else did. Just sign it. That's 4 times the current Supermax. A massive increase. What are they waiting for? But then, the full details started to come out, and it turns out the WNBA was being a little creative with their math. According to Front Office Sports, multiple sources who are familiar with the negotiations said those numbers are incredibly misleading. Here's what's really happening. That $1.1 million figure, that's not a base salary. Not even close. It's a combination of the base salary plus potential revenue sharing, plus bonuses. Under the league's actual offer, no player would sign a contract in 2026 with a base salary of $1.1 million. The real base Supermax is actually still between $800,000 and $850,000, which, okay, is still a huge jump from the current $229,000 Supermax. But it is not $1.1 million. So how do you get to that magic number they were advertising? Well, first, you need that $800,000 base salary. Then you need to win a WNBA championship. That's another $20,000. Be the championship runner-up. That's $7,000. Win MVP. $15,000. Make the All-WNBA first team. $10,000. All-Star participant. $2,500. All-Star MVP. Another $5,000. Then, on top of all that, you need to hit whatever revenue sharing targets they set. Which, by the way, the current CBA already has revenue sharing targets. You want to know how many times those have been hit since the deal was signed? 0. Not a single time. The players aren't stupid. They see exactly what's going on here. Sophie Cunningham, a veteran guard, told Front Office Sports, "It sounds good, and they can also have waved a big number in their face. But what happens when the business continues to go up?" The union's response to the offer was even more direct. They called it lipstick on a pig. Basically, what the players want is a system where their salaries are directly tied to a percentage of league revenue. That's how it works in the NBA, where players get roughly 50% of all basketball-related income. In the WNBA, players reportedly only get about 9% of league revenue. 9%. This is all happening while the league is experiencing record-breaking viewership and attendance, while expansion teams are selling for hundreds of millions of dollars, and while sponsors are lining up to get their brands associated with these players. And speaking of which, Caitlin Clark is making less than $86,000 in base salary next season. She is the single biggest driver of interest in the WNBA in the entire league's history. She's selling out arenas. She's generating massive TV ratings. She has endorsement deals with Nike, State Farm, Gatorade, and a ton of other major brands. And her WNBA salary is $86,000. Minnesota Lynx star Nafisa Collier has been extremely vocal about this exact issue. She's pointed out that players like Caitlin aren't able to earn what they're actually bringing into the league. Now here's the thing, the league keeps saying they want to increase player salaries. Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has talked about transformational deals, but there's clearly a major disagreement about what transformational actually means. The players want guaranteed percentages. The league wants to offer uncapped revenue sharing, which sounds great until you realize those caps are basically never triggered anyway. And in the meantime, you've got other leagues popping up trying to capitalize on this whole situation. Unrivaled launched its first season earlier this year. That's the 3-on-3 league founded by Breanna Stewart and Nafisa Collier. It ran from January to March and gave players another option to earn money in the off-season. Now there's Project B, which just announced it's planning to debut in November 2026. And this one is wild. It's an international circuit across Europe and Asia, similar to how Formula One or LEV Golf operates. WNBPA President Nneka Udwimike is one of the first public signees, and so are Alyssa Thomas, John Kell Jones and Jewel Lloyd. The salaries in Project B are reportedly 7 figures, which is potentially more than what the WNBA is even offering. So what happens if the WNBA can't get a deal done? Everything just stops. The expansion drafts for Toronto and Portland can't happen. Free agency can't happen. The 2026 draft can't happen. Neither side wants a work stoppage. That would be terrible for everyone, especially with the league finally gaining all this mainstream momentum. But the players have made it clear they are not going to accept a deal that leaves them behind if the business keeps booming. And here's the absolute irony of all this. Caitlin Clark is out here starring in State Farm commercials. She's got an 8-year, $28 million deal with Nike, the most lucrative shoe deal in women's basketball history. She's got a signature shoe coming out. She is making millions off the court. But her actual WNBA salary, that's just pocket change compared to the value she brings in. The haters love to point this out, by the way. They love to say that Caitlin gets all this attention and all these endorsements and it's not fair to other players. But here's what they don't get. Caitlin didn't create this system. She's just navigating it. If the WNBA actually paid players what they were worth based on the value they bring, Caitlin would be making significantly more. So would Asia Wilson. So would Breanna Stewart. So would a lot of players. The problem isn't that Caitlin has endorsements. The problem is that the league's salary structure hasn't kept up with its own growth. And speaking of haters, let's talk about them for a second. Lexi Hull, Caitlin's teammate on The Fever, did an interview with Glamour magazine recently and she said the quiet part out loud.
She said, "There is a level of jealousy when it comes to The Fever, just because of the media attention and the fans that have shown up for us ever since Caitlin got here." She talked about hearing other teams and players talking in their locker rooms about The Fever and how every single time they walk into a gym, there's a target on their backs. Every team wants to be the one to knock off the squad that turned the WNBA into must-watch television. And honestly, that tracks with everything we've seen. Just think about how Caitlin has been treated since she entered the spotlight. Sheryl Swoopes tried to invalidate her scoring records with completely incorrect statements. Diana Taurasi warned her about how tough the WNBA would be. Breanna Stewart said she needed a championship to be considered an all-time great. Some of the biggest names in women's basketball just couldn't celebrate what she was doing for the sport. And meanwhile, Caitlin has been nothing but respectful about the players who came before her. She constantly acknowledges the groundwork they laid. She never takes shots at other players. She just plays basketball and handles her business. The haters just keep moving the goalposts. First it was, she can't do that in the WNBA. Then, when she won Rookie of the Year and broke records, it became something else. Now, every single time she does something off the court, like appearing in a State Farm commercial, certain people just can't handle it. One fan summed it up perfectly on social media. These WNBA fans are the most jealous, stupidest fans ever. Something like this has never been done in the NBA. Goes to show how good Caitlyn is because she lives in their heads. And look, I'm not saying every criticism of Caitlyn is invalid. No player is above criticism. But there's a huge difference between legitimate basketball analysis and people who just want to see her fail because they're uncomfortable with her success. This State Farm commercial is a perfect example. It's a harmless, funny, 30-second ad about Chris Paul retiring. Caitlyn appears for maybe 10 seconds and somehow that's enough to send people into a complete spiral. You know what's really interesting? Some of the same people who hate on Caitlyn will turn around and complain that women's basketball doesn't get enough attention or endorsement money. But when a women's basketball player actually gets that attention and those endorsements, suddenly it's a problem. Make it make sense. The reality is, Caitlyn Clark is doing exactly what she's supposed to do. She's playing great basketball, she's growing the game, she's capitalizing on her marketability, and she's working with major brands who see the value in associating with her. State Farm sees it, Nike sees it, Gatorade sees it, every single brand that has signed her sees it. The WNBA should see it too. And they should be building a salary structure that reflects the value players like Caitlyn bring to the league. Because right now you have a situation where a player can generate hundreds of millions in value for the league and still make less than $100,000 in base salary. That's not sustainable. That is not fair. And the players know it. That's why these CBA negotiations are so tense. That's why the union isn't just accepting the first offer that sounds good on paper. They've been burned before with revenue sharing targets that never get hit, and they're not falling for it again. 8 days until the deadline. We'll see what happens. But in the meantime, Caitlyn is out here living her best life, making commercials with NBA legends, growing her brand, and absolutely driving certain people crazy just by existing rent-free every single day. That's the situation. Caitlyn Clark is winning big time off the court while the WNBA tries to figure out how to fairly pay its players. The haters are still hating, the negotiations are still ongoing, and we will keep covering every single development as it happens. If you enjoyed this breakdown, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Your support truly means everything.